She was 8 months
Anyone
pregnant,
home?
standing on her own front
Please,
porch
it's
in
Meredith. Let
19-degree
me
weather,
in.
and her husband had just locked the door. Through the frosted window, Meredith could see him inside, on their couch, with another woman. She knocked. She called his name. She begged him to let her in, and he looked at her, made eye contact with his pregnant wife, freezing in the December snow. Then he smiled, and he closed the curtain. What Meredith did not know was that someone else was watching, a billionaire neighbor she had never spoken to, a man with security cameras, a man who was already dialing 911. What happened next would expose an 18-month affair, $800,000 in hidden assets, and a betrayal so deep it would shake Meredith to her core. But it would also lead her to something she never expected to find. This is that story. The lock clicked. Meredith heard it from outside. The sound was small, almost insignificant. Just a tiny mechanical snap that should have meant nothing at all. But standing on her own front porch at 7:32 in the evening, 8 months pregnant, wearing nothing but a thin cardigan over her maternity dress, that small click changed everything. Meredith tried the door handle. It did not move. She tried it again, thinking perhaps the cold had made her fingers clumsy, had caused her to misjudge the angle. The handle turned, but the door stayed firmly shut, locked from the inside. She had only stepped out for a moment. The delivery driver had left a package by the mailbox at the end of the driveway, and she wanted to grab it before the snow ruined whatever was inside. Grant was home. She had heard him moving around in the living room just moments before. There was no reason to bring her phone or her coat for a 30-second trip to the mailbox. Now the door was locked. The December wind cut through her cardigan like the fabric did not exist. Meredith wrapped her arms around her pregnant belly, trying to shield her daughter from the cold that was already seeping into her bones. The temperature was 19 degrees. She had checked the weather app that morning while making Grant's coffee, the way she did every morning. 2 sugars, splash of cream, the routine of a wife who paid attention to details. She knocked on the door, 3 firm raps that echoed in the frozen evening air. Grant, she kept her voice calm, reasonable. Grant, the door locked behind me. Can you let me in? Through the frosted glass panel beside the door, she saw movement inside. A silhouette she recognized instantly. Her husband's familiar shape, the broad shoulders she had fallen in love with 6 years ago, the confident posture she had always found so attractive. But there was another silhouette too. Smaller, distinctly female, moving close to Grant in a way that made Meredith's stomach clench. Grant, please. She knocked again. It is freezing out here. I need to come inside. The silhouettes moved closer together, and then she heard it. Laughter, a woman's laughter, high and musical and completely out of place in Meredith's living room, coming from the house where she had made breakfast that very morning. The house where her daughter's nursery waited upstairs, painted the perfect shade of yellow after 3 different attempts. Meredith moved to the front window, the large picture window that looked out onto their quiet suburban street, the one they had decorated with Christmas lights just last weekend. Grant on the ladder while Meredith handed him clips from below, both of them laughing about how tangled the light strings had gotten in storage. She cupped her hands against the glass to block the glare from those same Christmas lights, now twinkling in cheerful red and green patterns. What she saw inside made her heart stop. Grant sat on their gray sectional sofa, the one they had picked out together last spring after 3 weekends of furniture shopping. The one where he had held her hand when she told him about the positive pregnancy test, his eyes filling with tears of what she had believed was joy. A woman sat beside him, blonde hair cascading over her shoulders in perfect waves. Young, maybe late 20s, pretty in that polished way that required time and money and attention. Her manicured hand rested on Grant's thigh with comfortable familiarity, like it had been there many times before, like it belonged there. Meredith knocked on the window. The sound was sharp against the cold glass. Grant looked up. He made direct eye contact with his pregnant wife standing outside in the snow. His expression did not change. No surprise, no guilt, no concern. Just a calm, measured look, as if he were observing something mildly interesting, but ultimately unimportant. Then he smiled. Not a warm smile. Not the smile he gave her when she brought him coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. Not the smile from their wedding photos, the one that had convinced her she had found her forever person. This smile was cold, deliberate, cruel. And then he reached for the curtain and pulled it closed. The baby kicked inside Meredith's belly, hard and insistent, as if she knew something was terribly wrong, as if she was trying to warn her mother that the world had just shifted on its axis. No, Meredith whispered the word. No, no, no. She pounded on the window with her open palm. The impact left smudges in the frost. Her hands stung from the cold, but she kept hitting the glass, harder, more desperate. The Christmas lights continued to twinkle through the fabric of the closed curtains, red and green and white, blinking in the cheerful pattern she had programmed herself just 7 days ago. Grant, her voice cracked. Grant, let me in, please. Nothing, no movement behind the curtains. No sound except the wind and her own ragged breathing and the distant hum of traffic from the main road 3 blocks away. Her slippers were already soaked through, the fuzzy ones Grant had given her last Christmas, with little embroidered snowflakes on the toes. She had laughed when she opened them, called them perfect for lazy weekend mornings, kissed him in thanks. Now they were ruined, waterlogged and useless against the frozen porch. Meredith tried the door handle again. Lock. Try. Lock. Try, die, lock. The repetition felt insane, but she could not stop herself. Her brain refused to accept what was happening. Maybe the lock was stuck. Maybe if she just tried one more time, it would give. Maybe Grant would come to his senses and open the door and explain that this was all some terrible misunderstanding, some practical joke gone wrong, something with a reasonable explanation that would let her world make sense again. The handle did not move. Her phone was inside the house, sitting on the kitchen counter where she always left it to charge while she cooked dinner. She could picture it there, screen dark, battery at 87%, completely useless to her now. She had left it charging while she checked on the roast in the oven, while her husband sat on their couch with another woman. The snow began falling harder, fat flakes that clung to her dark hair and her thin cardigan and her eyelashes. Each one felt like a tiny cold kiss, a reminder of how exposed she was, how vulnerable. The cold seeped deeper into her bones. Her fingers were going numb despite how hard she rubbed them together. Her toes had already lost feeling inside the ruined slippers. She could feel her body temperature dropping, could feel the dangerous lethargy trying to creep into her limbs. Hypothermia. The words surfaced from some half-remembered first aid course. Early stage hypothermia. Keep moving. Find shelter. Do not stop moving. She stumbled down the porch steps, nearly falling when her foot slipped on a patch of ice. She caught herself on the railing, the cold metal burning her palm. Her belly made balance difficult. Everything made everything difficult when you were 8 months pregnant and freezing to death in your own front yard. The neighbor's house, the big one. The estate, really, with the iron gates and the perfectly manicured hedges and the long driveway that disappeared behind a row of evergreens. The one belonging to the man she had seen maybe twice in 3 years of living in this neighborhood. She did not even know his name. Just that he was wealthy, obviously. Private, clearly. Rarely home, according to the neighborhood gossip. Some kind of tech billionaire or investor or something. The kind of person who lived in a different world than Meredith and her 2 sugar splash of cream husband. But his house had lights on. Someone was home. The walk felt endless. Her feet did not want to cooperate. Each step required conscious effort, a deliberate command from her brain to her legs that her legs were increasingly reluctant to obey. The snow kept falling. The wind kept cutting. The baby kept kicking, angry and scared, just like her mother. She made it to the gate, a massive iron structure with intricate scroll work that probably cost more than her car. Her frozen fingers found the intercom button. She pressed it once, twice, 3 times. Her finger would not stop shaking. Static crackled through the speaker. Then a voice, deep, male, cautious, but alert. Hello? Please. Meredith's voice cracked on the word. Her teeth were chattering so hard she could barely form syllables. Please help me. I am pregnant. My husband locked me out. I do not have my phone. It is so cold. Please. Silence stretched for 1 second, 2, 3. an eternity compressed into heartbeats. She imagined the man inside, whoever he was, deciding whether to get involved, deciding whether a stranger's crisis was worth his time on a December evening. Then the voice came again, firm and immediate, no hesitation, no questions. The gate is opening now. Walk straight to the front door. I am calling 911. The iron gates swung inward with a mechanical hum. The sound was almost musical, almost welcoming. Meredith stepped onto the driveway and felt warmth radiating up through her ruined slippers. The driveway was heated, actual heated pavement, keeping the surface clear of the snow and ice. Such a strange detail to notice while her world collapsed around her. Rich people had heated driveways. That seemed important somehow, though she could not have explained why. She walked toward the house, one foot in front of the other. The driveway seemed to stretch forever, a path through a winter wonderland that she was too cold and too broken to appreciate. The snow kept falling. The baby kept kicking. Her husband stayed inside their house with another woman, probably pouring wine by now, probably laughing about something, probably not thinking about his wife at all. 7 minutes. That was how long she had knocked. How long she had stood in the cold, calling his name, begging him to let her in. 7 minutes of watching her breath form clouds in the frozen air while her husband watched her freeze. The front door opened before she reached it. A man stood there, silhouetted against the warm light spilling from inside. Tall, well over 6 feet. Dark hair with touches of gray at the temples that made him look distinguished rather than old. He wore a cashmere sweater in a deep burgundy that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. Inside, his voice was calm but commanding. Now. It was not a question, not a request, a directive issued by someone accustomed to being obeyed, but without the arrogance that such authority often carried. He sounded like someone who was used to taking charge of emergencies, like someone who knew what to do when the world fell apart. Meredith stepped into warmth. The transition from frozen porch to heated foyer was so sudden, so complete, that her body could not process it. Her knees buckled without warning, the sudden temperature change overwhelming her system. Strong arms caught her before she hit the marble floor. He moved fast for such a large man, anticipating her collapse before it happened. I have got you. His voice was steady and calm, the kind of voice that made everything seem manageable even when nothing was. The ambulance is 4 minutes out. Can you tell me your name? Meredith. She managed the word through chattering teeth. Meredith Cole. Meredith, I am Callum. Callum Ashford. You are safe now. I need you to stay awake. Can you do that for me? She nodded. The baby kicked again, angry and scared and insistent, just like her mother. An older woman appeared, moving with surprising speed and grace for someone who must have been in her 70s. Silver hair swept up in an elegant twist that looked effortless, but probably required significant skill. She carried blankets, thick ones that radiated warmth. Grandmother, the heating blankets from the guest room, Callum said. Already ahead of you, dear. The woman wrapped Meredith like a child being tucked into bed, layer after layer of soft, warm fabric. Her hands were gentle but efficient, the hands of someone who had dealt with crises before. There now, what kind of monster leaves a pregnant woman in the snow? Meredith could not answer, could not form words around the enormity of what Grant had done, what he was still doing right now in the house next door. With her, the blonde woman with the perfect hair and the comfortable hand on his thigh. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The sound should have been comforting. Help was coming, but all Meredith could think about was Grant's face in the window, that smile, the deliberate way he had reached for the curtain. The police will want to talk to you, the Callum said. He had not released her arm, steadying her, grounding her. His gray eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that felt almost protective. You do not have to say anything you are not ready to say, but I am going to tell them exactly what I saw through my window. Meredith looked up at him. What did you see? His jaw tightened. Something dark flickered in those gray eyes. Pain, maybe, or recognition, like he understood something about this situation that she had not yet grasped. I saw your husband look at you through that window. I saw him see you standing there in the cold. Saw him close the curtain. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled. I told you knocking for 7 minutes before you came here. I counted. 7 minutes. Grant had watched her freeze for 7 minutes, had heard her calling his name through the glass, had made direct eye contact with his pregnant wife standing in 19-degree weather, and he had smiled, and he had closed the curtain. The sirens were close now. Red and blue lights strobed through the windows, painting the elegant foyer in emergency colors. He knew. Meredith heard herself say it. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. He saw me, he knew I was out there, and he just... Yes, Callum's voice was gentle but unflinching. He knew. The front door burst open. Paramedics rushed in with equipment and urgent voices and the controlled chaos of people who dealt with emergencies every day. Someone wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Meredith's arm. Someone else attached monitors to her belly. Questions came at her from multiple directions, and she answered on autopilot, her brain too frozen to process what was happening. Core temperature 94 degrees, one of the paramedics announced. His voice was professionally calm, but she could hear the concern beneath it. We need to start warming protocols immediately. 94 degrees. Normal body temperature was 98.6. She had lost almost 5 degrees of core body heat in less than half an hour. Dangerous territory, life-threatening territory. The baby? Meredith grabbed the paramedic's arm. Is the baby okay? He checked the monitor attached to her belly, studied the readout with practiced eyes. Heartbeat is strong, 142 beats per minute. Baby seems to be handling this well. He offered a small, reassuring smile. Kids are resilient, even before they are born. Relief flooded through her, warm and overwhelming and completely at odds with the physical coldness still gripping her body. Her daughter was okay. Whatever else happened tonight, her daughter was okay. We need to transport her, the other paramedic said. Get her to the hospital for full evaluation and monitoring. They prepared the stretcher. Callum appeared beside her again, his presence somehow solid and reassuring in the chaos. I will follow in my car, he said. You will not be alone at the hospital. You do not have to do that. The words came automatically. Years of conditioning. Do not impose. Do not be a burden. Do not ask for more than you deserve. I know. His gray eyes held hers, steady, certain. I know I do not have to. They wheeled her toward the ambulance. The cold hit her again as they moved outside, but the warming blankets and the activity had helped. She was shivering violently now, which the paramedics seemed to consider a good sign. Shivering means your body is fighting, one of them explained as they loaded her into the ambulance. It is when you stop shivering that we worry. Through the small window in the ambulance door, Meredith could see her house as they pulled away, the Christmas lights still twinkling in their cheerful pattern, the curtains still closed. Her husband still inside with another woman, probably wondering how long it would take before his pregnant wife stumbled back inside, frozen and humiliated and finally understanding that she was not wanted. He had not expected her to find help, had not expected anyone to notice, had not expected consequences. 7 minutes, she thought again, as the ambulance siren wailed and the lights of her neighborhood faded behind her. He watched me freeze for 7 minutes. The truth of it settled into her bones, colder than any December snow. Her marriage was over. Her life as she knew it was over. The man she had loved, the man she had married, the man she had created a child with was not who she thought he was. Maybe had never been who she thought he was. Something else was beginning. She did not know what yet, could not see past the immediate crisis, the immediate betrayal, the immediate shock. But something else was definitely beginning. The ambulance raced through the December night, carrying Meredith Cole away from the house where she had almost died and toward whatever came next. The hospital was too bright, too loud, too full of strangers asking questions Meredith did not have answers for. They wheeled her into a private room in the obstetrics wing and hooked her to machines that beeped and whirred and tracked every vital sign. A nurse appeared with more warm blankets. Another started an IV for fluids. A doctor checked her cervix and announced that the baby was fine, not in distress, holding steady despite the trauma. Fine. Her daughter was fine. 8 months of careful prenatal care, of prenatal vitamins, and healthy eating and avoiding caffeine and alcohol and everything else the books said to avoid. 8 months of doing everything right, of being the perfect expectant mother. And then her husband had tried to freeze her to death. No. She pushed that thought away. It was too big, too overwhelming, too impossible to process while machines beeped and strangers hovered and her body slowly warmed back to normal temperature. Deputy Warren Foley arrived about 45 minutes after she did. He was middle-aged and balding, with kind eyes that had clearly seen too much over the years. The kind of cop who had learned to separate his emotions from his job, but who still cared enough that it showed in the gentle way he pulled a chair close to her bed. "Mrs. Cole, I need to ask you some questions about tonight." His voice was calm and unhurried, like they had all the time in the world. "Are you feeling up to that?" Meredith nodded. The warming protocols were working. She could feel her fingers again. Her toes tingled with returning sensation. The shivering had stopped, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that made her want to close her eyes and not open them for a very long time. "Can you walk me through what happened? Start from the beginning. Take your time." So she did. The package by the mailbox. Stepping outside without her phone because it was supposed to take 30 seconds. The door locking behind her. The woman on her couch. Grant's face in the window. Deputy Foley wrote it all down in a small notebook, his pen moving in steady strokes. His expression remained carefully neutral, professionally blank. But she saw something shift in his eyes when she described the curtain closing. A hardening, a judgment he was trying not to make. "And you say you knocked for approximately 7 minutes before going to the neighbor's house?" "That is what he told me." "The neighbor, Mr. Ashford. He said he was watching through his window. He said he counted." The deputy nodded slowly. "Mr. Ashford has already given his statement. He was very detailed, very thorough." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "He has security cameras on his property. Multiple angles, high definition. He has offered the footage to the department." Security cameras. Meredith had not thought about that. Rich people had security cameras. Of course they did, which meant somewhere out there on some hard drive or cloud server, there was a recording of her standing in the snow, knocking on her own door while her husband watched and did nothing. Proof, evidence, documentation of exactly what had happened. "Mrs. Cole, I need to ask you directly." Deputy Foley leaned forward slightly. "Do you want to press charges?" The question caught her off guard. "Charges? For what?" "Ma'am, given the circumstances you have described, we are looking at several potential charges." He ticked them off on his fingers. "Reckless endangerment. You are 8 months pregnant. The temperature was 19 degrees, and he deliberately left you outside for an extended period. Depending on what the district attorney decides, we could potentially add attempted assault, or even worse, given that you were in a vulnerable condition." Reckless endangerment. The words felt foreign, clinical, like something from a courtroom drama on television. Not her actual life. Not her actual husband. "I need to think about it," she said. Deputy Foley nodded and closed his notebook. "That is completely understandable. Take all the time you need. Here is my card." He placed it on the bedside table. "Call me when you are ready to talk more. Day or night, my cell number is on there." He stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Mrs. Cole, I have been doing this job for 22 years. I have seen a lot of domestic situations. A lot of marriages falling apart in ugly ways." His voice softened. "What your husband did tonight was not a mistake. It was not an accident. A man does not look at his pregnant wife standing in the snow and close the curtain by accident. I just want you to know that. Whatever you decide to do next, whatever you decide about charges, do not let anyone tell you that you are overreacting. Do not let anyone tell you that what happened was not exactly what it looked like." He left before she could respond. The room fell quiet except for the machines monitoring her vital signs. Reckless endangerment, attempted assault. Her husband, the man who had cried when they saw the positive pregnancy test. The man who had painted the nursery 3 different shades of yellow before finding the perfect one, could potentially face criminal charges for what he had done tonight. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Callum Ashford stood in the doorway, looking uncertain for the first time since she had met him. The confident billionaire who had taken charge of the emergency was gone. In his place was just a man, standing at the threshold of a hospital room, asking permission to enter. "May I come in?" She nodded. He crossed to the chair Deputy Foley had vacated and sat down. His presence seemed to fill the room without overwhelming it. He was the kind of person who commanded attention simply by existing, but who chose not to demand it. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like my entire life just exploded." "That is understandable." Silence stretched between them, but it was not uncomfortable. He seemed content to simply sit with her, to provide company without expectation. After the chaos of the past few hours, the quietness was almost soothing. "Thank you," Meredith said finally, "for everything tonight. You saved my life, my daughter's life. If you had not been watching, if you had not called for help, I was in the right place at the right time. You were watching, you noticed. Most people would not have." She studied his face, trying to understand this stranger who had intervened so decisively. "Why were you watching?" Something flickered in his gray eyes, pain, maybe, or memory. "I have security cameras on my property," he said. "I check them regularly. A habit I developed after." He stopped himself, shook his head. "That is a story for another time. The important thing is that help came, that you and your baby are safe." A nurse arrived with Meredith's personal belongings, her ruined slippers, the fuzzy snowflake ones that would never be the same, her waterlogged cardigan dripping onto the plastic bag, and her phone recovered by police from her kitchen counter. "The officers went to your residence to collect some things," the nurse explained cheerfully, apparently oblivious to the weight of what she was saying. "Your husband was cooperative. He seemed very concerned about your welfare." Cooperative. Concerned. Grant was putting on a show for the police. Of course he was. He had always been good at performing the perfect husband when other people were watching. Meredith picked up her phone. The screen lit up, showing dozens of notifications. But it was the text messages that caught her attention. 43 unread messages from a contact labeled gym trainer. Meredith did not have a gym trainer. She had not been to a gym since learning she was pregnant 8 months ago. She opened the thread. The world tilted sideways. "Baby, I can't wait to see you tonight. She's so boring lately. All she talks about is the pregnancy." "I know, babe. Soon you'll be free. We'll have our own baby. A real family. I picked up those earrings you wanted. She didn't notice the charge. She never checks the statements anymore. You're too good to me. Only 3 more months until we can be together for real. Can't stop thinking about last night. You're amazing. She has no idea what she's missing. I told her I had a work dinner. She believed me. She always believes me." The messages went on, hundreds of them, 18 months of them, going back and back and back. Flirty texts and explicit photos and plans for a future that did not include Meredith or her daughter. A whole secret life, documented in digital conversations, hidden in plain sight on her husband's phone, under a label designed to avoid suspicion. Gym trainer. He had been clever about it, just vague enough to seem innocent if she ever glanced at his phone. The affair had started 18 months ago. They had been married for 4 years. They had started trying for a baby 6 months after the affair began. Grant had been sleeping with another woman the entire time, while Meredith tracked her ovulation with apps and thermometers and careful attention, while she underwent 3 rounds of fertility treatments that left her exhausted and emotional and grateful for his supposed support, while she cried over negative tests and celebrated the positive one with what she thought was shared joy. All of it, every moment, every tender word, every supportive gesture. A lie. The phone slipped from Meredith's fingers and clattered against the bed rail. The sound was sharp, final, like something breaking. "Meredith?" Callum's voice cut through the fog. "What is it? What happened?" She could not speak, could not form words around the magnitude of what she had just discovered. She just handed him the phone. He read silently, scrolling through message after message. His expression did not change, but his jaw tightened with each scroll. His knuckles whitened around the phone. 18 months, he said finally. His voice was carefully controlled, but something dangerous lurked beneath the surface. The affair has been going on for 18 months. Meredith nodded. Her throat was too tight for words. The entire time you were trying to have a baby. The entire time you were going through fertility treatments. Another nod. Tears were streaming down her face now, but she did not bother wiping them away. What was the point? Her entire marriage had been a performance. Every memory she treasured was tainted. Every I love you had been a rehearsed line in a play she had not known she was watching. Callum handed the phone back. His movements were careful, controlled, like he was containing something that wanted to explode. You need a lawyer, he said. A good one. Someone who specializes in divorce, specifically high-conflict divorce with significant assets and potential criminal charges. I can recommend someone, best in the state. I do not even know where I am going to sleep tonight. The practicality of it hit her suddenly. She could not go home, could not return to that house with its closed curtains and its secret girlfriend. I do not have clothes. I do not have money. Everything is in that house. You will figure that out, one thing at a time. Callum's voice was gentle but firm. For tonight, my grandmother has already prepared a guest room at the estate. You should not be alone, and you absolutely should not go back to that house. Meredith shook her head automatically. I cannot impose like that. You have already done so much. You do not even know me. I know enough. His gray eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. I know your husband tried to kill you and your baby tonight. Whether he admits it or not, whether he intended it consciously or not, that is what leaving a pregnant woman in 19-degree weather does. Hypothermia can be fatal in under an hour in those conditions. You were outside for almost 30 minutes total before the ambulance arrived. Kill. The word hit like a physical blow. He was not trying to kill me. He would not. But she could not finish the sentence. Could not defend a man who had watched her freeze and smiled. Was he not? Callum's voice stayed quiet, but his words cut through her denial. He looked at you through the window. He saw you standing in the snow. He closed the curtain. He did not call for help. He did not let you inside. He just waited. Waited for what? I do not know. Maybe for you to give up and go somewhere else. Maybe for you to collapse. Maybe for the problem to solve itself. Callum leaned forward. Meredith, I have seen cruelty before. I know what deliberate harm looks like. What your husband did tonight was not an accident. It was not a moment of confusion. It was a choice. The monitors beeped. The IV dripped. Outside the window, snow continued to fall on a city that did not care about Meredith Cole's shattered life. I believed him, she whispered. I believed everything. The love, the commitment, the excitement about the baby. I thought we were happy. You were happy. Your happiness was real, even if his was not. Callum's voice softened. Do not let his deception make you doubt your own heart. You loved genuinely. He was the liar. The fault lies with him. A new nurse arrived with discharge paperwork. Meredith's temperature had returned to normal. The baby was stable. There was no medical reason to keep her overnight, though they recommended she follow up with her obstetrician within 24 hours. Is there someone we can call to pick you up? The nurse asked. Before Meredith could answer, Callum spoke. I will take her. The nurse nodded and left to finalize the paperwork. Meredith looked at this stranger who had become her lifeline. This man she had barely noticed in 3 years of living next door, who had watched through his window, counted the minutes, called for help before she even asked, who was now offering his home to a woman he had met only hours ago. Why are you doing all this? She asked. I am nothing to you, just the neighbor you have seen twice in 3 years. Callum was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured, like he was choosing each word with great care. 3 years ago, my wife died. The words came out flat, factual, like he had said them so many times they had lost their sharp edges. Domestic violence. Her first husband found her after years of hiding. One afternoon while I was traveling for work, the security cameras I installed captured everything, every second of what he did to her. Meredith's breath caught. I am so sorry. After that, I made some changes, more cameras, better security, and a habit of watching, paying attention, noticing things that seem wrong. He met her eyes. Tonight, I was watching the feeds while having dinner. I saw you go outside to get a package. I saw the door close behind you. I saw you knocking, and I saw your husband look at you through the window and close the curtain. You saw all of it. I saw all of it. His jaw tightened. I saw him smile, Meredith, right before he pulled the curtain closed. He smiled at you standing there in the snow, and then he went back to his girlfriend like you did not exist. The confirmation hit her fresh. She had not imagined it. The smile was real. The cruelty was real. And there was a witness. There was proof. I called 911 before you even made it to my gate, Callum continued. I was watching you walk across the yard, and I was already dialing. Because I knew what I was seeing. I knew what deliberate abandonment that looked like. And I was not going to let it end the way it ended for Evelyn. His wife's name. Evelyn, a real person who had loved this man and been taken from him by violence. I am sorry for your loss, Meredith said softly, and I am sorry for yours. He stood. Let me get the car. It is time to get you somewhere safe. She watched him leave, this stranger who had become her unexpected savior. This billionaire neighbor who called 911 first and then stayed for everything that came after. She pressed her hand against her belly. The baby shifted beneath her palm, restless, ready to be born into a world that had just gotten infinitely more complicated. We made it through tonight, Meredith told her daughter silently. Whatever comes next, we will make it through that too. She did not know if it was true, but she needed to believe it, for her daughter's sake, if not her own. 3 days passed in a blur of legal documents, difficult conversations, and long stretches of staring at walls. Meredith stayed in Callum's guest room, a space larger than her entire first apartment after college. The bed was king-sized with sheets that felt like clouds. The bathroom had heated floors and a soaking tub big enough to swim in. The windows looked out over acres of manicured grounds, now covered in pristine white snow. She barely noticed any of it. Charlotte Ashford, Callum's grandmother, insisted on feeding her every few hours. Bone broth for healing, chamomile tea for stress, warm bread with butter because, in Charlotte's firm opinion, babies needed carbohydrates and so did their mothers. You need to eat, Charlotte would say, appearing in the doorway with another tray. Grief burns calories, trauma burns more. You are eating for two, and both of you need fuel. Meredith ate because it was easier than arguing. The food was excellent, prepared by a chef whose name she never learned. But everything tasted like cardboard. Everything felt like going through motions. On the morning of the fourth day, her best friend arrived. Jocelyn Pruitt burst through the front door without knocking, having apparently talked her way past whatever security measures the Ashford estate employed. She was crying before she even made it across the foyer, mascara streaking down her face in dramatic black rivulets. Meredith, oh my God, Meredith! God. She collapsed into the chair beside the bed where Meredith was sitting, staring out the window at nothing in particular. Jocelyn grabbed her hands. Her grip was tight enough to leave marks. Callum Ashford called me. He found my number in your phone under emergency contacts. He told me everything. Jocelyn's voice broke on the last word. I came as fast as I could. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Meredith looked at her friend. They had known each other since sophomore year of college. 12 years of friendship, countless dinners and phone calls and shared secrets. Jocelyn had been her maid of honor at the wedding, had thrown her baby shower just 2 months ago, and yet. Callum told you what happened, Meredith said slowly. Did he tell you everything? About Grant locking you out? About the hypothermia? About the other woman? Jocelyn nodded frantically. It is unbelievable. I never would have thought Grant was capable of something like that. He always seemed so devoted to you. He was sleeping with her for 18 months, Jocelyn. I know. Callum told me about the messages. It is shocking. Truly shocking. Something in Jocelyn's voice did not ring true. Some slight hesitation, some barely perceptible waver. Meredith pulled her hands back. You knew. The words hung in the air between them. Jocelyn's face went pale. What? No, I did not. I never. Jocelyn, tell me the truth. Silence stretched, long and painful and full of everything Meredith did not want to hear. I suspected, Jocelyn said finally. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I saw them once, at that restaurant downtown, the one with the rooftop bar. Back in September, they were having lunch. sitting very close together. He had his hand on her knee. September, 3 months ago, while Meredith was 6 months pregnant and decorating the nursery and planning their first Thanksgiving as expectant parents. Why did you not tell me? I told myself it was nothing. Jocelyn's words tumbled out in a rush. I told myself I must have misunderstood. They were just colleagues having a work lunch. Maybe she was upset about something and he was comforting her. I owe her. Maybe I saw it from the wrong angle. You did not believe any of that. No. Tears spilled down Jocelyn's face. No, I did not, but I wanted to. I wanted to believe it so badly because the alternative was destroying your world, telling you that your husband was cheating while you were pregnant with his baby. I could not, I did not know how to. So you said nothing. I said nothing, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Jocelyn reached for Meredith's hands again, but Meredith moved away. I should have told you. The moment I saw them, I should have called you. I was a coward. I chose comfortable silence over uncomfortable truth. I failed you. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Meredith stood and walked to the window, putting distance between herself and the friend who had betrayed her almost as completely as her husband had. Betrayed, that was the right word, not just Grant's affair. Jocelyn's silence. How many other people had known? How many had looked at Meredith with her pregnant belly and her happy smile and her ignorant belief in her marriage and said nothing? I trusted you, Meredith said without turning around. You were the one person I could always count on. Through everything. Through grad school and job hunting and bad dates and worse breakups. Through meeting Grant and falling in love and planning the wedding and trying for a baby. You were there for all of it. I know, and I failed you when it mattered most. You failed me for 3 months. For 90 days, you knew or suspected that my husband was cheating, and you said nothing. You came to my baby shower. You helped me pick out strollers. You let me talk about our plans for the nursery and our arguments about baby names and our excitement about becoming parents, all while knowing that Grant was with someone else. I did not know for certain. I only suspected. But you suspected strongly enough that you are crying about it now. That you came rushing here the moment you heard what happened. Meredith finally turned to face her friend. You suspected strongly enough that you feel guilty, which means you knew enough to say something, and you chose not to. Jocelyn had no defense. Her tears kept falling, but she did not try to argue, did not try to explain or justify or minimize, just sat there looking broken, accepting the weight of what she had done. Charlotte Ashford appeared in the doorway. She assessed the situation in 3 seconds flat, her sharp eyes taking in the crying friend and the stiff-backed, pregnant woman by the window. You must be the friend who knew and did not say anything. Jocelyn flinched. I did not know for certain, I only suspected. And you chose comfortable silence over uncomfortable truth. How very modern of you. Charlotte set down a tea tray with more force than necessary. Drink something, both of you. Crying is dehydrating. She swept out of the room, leaving Meredith and Jocelyn alone with the weight of her judgment. Meredith picked up a teacup, chamomile again. The warmth helped, even if nothing else did. I do not want to lose you over this, Jocelyn said quietly. I know I do not have the right to ask for anything, but you are my best friend. You have been my best friend for 12 years. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. The words triggered a flood of memories. Unwanted but undeniable. Freshman dorm rooms and late-night study sessions fueled by cheap pizza and desperation. Post-breakup ice cream binges that lasted entire weekends. Job interview prep and promotion celebrations, and navigating the complications of adult friendship across different cities and life stages. Jocelyn holding her hair back when she got food poisoning at that beach vacation in the Outer Banks. Meredith talking her through her father's funeral, sitting with her for hours in the days after. Grant's proposal on that beach in Maine, the sunset painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Jocelyn crying happy tears when Meredith called to tell her, "You found your forever, Mare. You really found it." Had Grant already known Brittany then? Had he been texting her while picking out the engagement ring? The pregnancy announcement. Grant spinning her around their kitchen, laughing with what she had thought was pure joy. Jocelyn showing up the next day with a stack of parenting books and a onesie that said, "Future Bookworm." Had Grant practiced that spinning joy? Had Brittany helped him rehearse the right level of enthusiasm? The nursery painting, 3 shades of yellow because nothing was quite perfect. Grant on his hands and knees, taping off the baseboards with careful precision. It has to be perfect, Mare. Just like you. Just like our daughter is going to be. Was any of it real? Any moment? Any word? Any touch? Meredith set down the teacup. Her hands were shaking again, but not from cold this time. "I need you to leave," she said. "Not forever, just for right now. I cannot process the betrayal and the friendship at the same time. My brain does not have the capacity for that right now." Jocelyn nodded. She stood slowly, like her body hurt. "I understand. Call me when you are ready, whenever that is, even if it takes months. I will be here." She left without another word. Meredith sat alone in the silence. The baby kicked, a reminder of the one truly innocent party in all of this. 18 months. Grant had been lying for 18 months. While she tracked her ovulation and underwent fertility treatments and cried over negative tests and celebrated the positive one. While she planned their future and dreamed about their family and believed every word he said. Was any of it real? Was any of it ever real? The question echoed in the beautiful guest room with its cloud-soft sheets and heated bathroom floors. Meredith pressed her palms against her eyes. She would not cry again. She had cried enough. Her tear ducts should be empty by now. But the grief kept coming, wave after wave, not for the marriage she was losing, but for the marriage she thought she had, for the happy memories that were now poisoned, for the inside jokes that were probably shared with Brittany too, for the tender moments that meant nothing because they had been performances, not truths. Charlotte reappeared a few minutes later, this time without tea. "The attorney is here," she announced. "Raymond Whitmore. He is the best divorce lawyer in the state. My grandson called him yesterday. I do not know if I can handle a legal conversation right now." "You cannot afford not to handle it." Charlotte's voice was firm but not unkind, like a grandmother who knew when tough love was necessary. "Your husband has had 18 months to plan his exit strategy. You have had 4 days to recover from nearly dying. The longer you wait to build your own strategy, the more advantage he accumulates." She was right. Meredith knew she was right. She stood. Her body ached. Pregnancy and trauma and stress and lack of sleep all combining into a constant low-level pain that never quite went away. Raymond Whitmore waited in the study downstairs. He was a trim man in his mid-50s, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to catalog everything they observed. He stood when Meredith entered, his handshake firm but brief. "Mrs. Cole, I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." "So do I, Mr. Whitmore." "Raymond, please." He gestured to a chair across from him. "Shall we begin?" They sat across from each other at a polished mahogany table. Raymond opened a leather portfolio thick with documents. "I have spent the past 24 hours doing preliminary research on your situation," he said. "The marriage certificate, the property deed for your home, the joint bank accounts. I have to tell you, Mrs. Cole, there are some significant concerns." "What kind of concerns?" Raymond's expression remained professionally neutral. "Large transfers from your joint accounts over the past 6 months. Approximately $73,000 moved to an account in your husband's name only, an account you apparently did not know existed. $73,000, almost their entire savings, gone. Additionally," Raymond continued, "my investigator has discovered a second property, an apartment downtown. Lease signed 18 months ago, the same month the affair began, according to those text messages. The love nest." Grant had set up an apartment for himself and Brittany, while Meredith clipped coupons and made careful grocery lists and convinced herself they needed to be responsible with money. "There is more." Raymond's voice was gentle but relentless. "A brokerage account registered in his mother's name but funded entirely with marital assets. A cryptocurrency wallet containing a substantial sum. A vehicle titled to a company that exists only on paper. My forensic accountant is still digging, but preliminary estimates put the total hidden assets at approximately $800,000. $800,000, Meredith laughed. The sound was sharp and brittle, and not at all amused. We could not afford a vacation last summer. He said we needed to save money because of the baby. We ate ramen for a week in October because he said the budget was tight. I wore my sister's old maternity clothes because buying new ones seemed wasteful. He was lying. Yes. She let out a long breath. He was lying about everything. Raymond closed his portfolio. Mrs. Cole, I am going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. What do you want out of this divorce? Do you want to settle quickly and move on with your life? Or do you want to fight? Meredith thought about Grant's face in the window. That smile, the deliberate way he had reached for the curtain. She thought about the text messages, 18 months of deception, the fertility treatment she had undergone while he was sleeping with another woman, the baby shower Jocelyn had thrown while knowing, or at least suspecting, that everything was a lie. She thought about her daughter kicking inside her belly, the baby who would grow up knowing that her father had tried to leave her mother to freeze to death. I want to fight, she said. I want everything he took from me. I want him to face consequences for what he did. Raymond smiled. It was the first genuine expression she had seen from him, and there was something almost predatory in it. Then let us get to work. 2 weeks after the incident, Meredith moved out of Callum's guest room and into a small apartment near her mother's house in Pittsburgh. The decision came suddenly, spurred by a combination of practical concerns and emotional necessity. She could not stay at the Ashford estate indefinitely. She needed to be closer to her obstetrician as her due date approached, and she needed space to process everything without the constant, hovering presence of well-meaning strangers. Dorothy Hayward had driven 4 hours through the night when she first heard what happened. She arrived at the hospital while Meredith was still being warmed, burst through the doors like an avenging angel, and had not left her daughter's side since. I am taking you home, Dorothy announced on the day of the move. It was not a request. Pittsburgh is where you belong right now, close to family, close to doctors who know your history, close to people who love you unconditionally. The apartment she found was modest but clean. 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, a living room that barely fit Dorothy's hand-me-down furniture. But it was Meredith's, a space untainted by Grant's presence. A fresh start. On her 4th night there, sitting alone at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, because sleep had become a stranger, Meredith heard a knock at the door. She checked the peephole, expecting her mother. Instead, she found Brittany Vance standing in the hallway. The mistress, Grant's girlfriend, the other woman. Meredith opened the door before she could think better of it. Pregnancy brain, maybe, or morbid curiosity, or the simple need to put a face to the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. Brittany was beautiful up close. High cheekbones, flawless skin, honey blonde highlights that caught the hallway light. She wore designer everything, coat, boots, handbag, probably underwear too. The kind of woman who looked expensive without trying. The kind of woman Meredith had never been. Can I help you? Meredith kept her voice neutral, flat, giving nothing away. You have to drop the charges. Excuse me? The reckless endangerment charge. Brittany's voice was clipped, rehearsed, like she had practiced this speech in the car. You have to drop it. Grant could lose his job. If he loses his job, he cannot pay alimony or child support. You will ruin both our lives. The audacity, the absolute, unmitigated, breathtaking audacity. Meredith stared at this woman who had knowingly slept with a married man for 18 months, who had helped him deceive his pregnant wife, who had probably been in Meredith's house that night, sitting on Meredith's couch, watching through Meredith's window as Meredith froze in Meredith's front yard. He locked me outside in December, Meredith said slowly. While I am 8 months pregnant, with his child, he watched me freeze for 7 minutes and did nothing. It was not supposed to go that far. Brittany's composure cracked slightly, a glimpse of something human beneath the polished exterior. He just wanted to scare you. He wanted you to see us together and finally leave him. He thought you would go to a neighbor's house right away. He did not expect you to keep knocking for so long. He wanted me to catch hypothermia and lose the baby. That is what happens when you leave a pregnant woman in 19-degree weather. That is not what... Brittany stopped. Something shifted in her expression. A crack in the armor widening into a fracture. He told me you knew about us. He said you had figured it out months ago and were just staying to torture him, to make his life miserable, to keep him trapped in a marriage he did not want. I had no idea until I read his text messages from my hospital bed. Silence fell between them, heavy and charged with competing versions of reality. Brittany's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling. Meredith could see it happening in real time, watching the cognitive dissonance play across her features. The lies Grant had told his mistress were colliding with the truth of who Meredith actually was. He told me you two had not been intimate in years, Brittany said. Her voice was smaller now, uncertain. He said you trapped Dia and him with the pregnancy, that you stopped taking birth control without telling him, that you forced him into fatherhood against his will. We planned this baby together. We did 3 rounds of fertility treatments. I have the receipts, the medical records, the insurance statements. He held my hand during every procedure and cried every time we got a negative result. Something in Brittany's face crumpled, the last pillar of her justification collapsing. She sat down on the apartment steps, uninvited, her designer coat pooling around her like defeated plumage. I am pregnant too. The words were barely audible. 6 weeks. He promised to leave you after the holidays. He said we would raise both babies together, like a real family. The universe had a profoundly sick sense of humor. Grant had gotten his pregnant wife and his pregnant girlfriend in the same story. 2 women carrying his children, 2 families he could not possibly maintain. A bomb he had set and then walked away from, leaving everyone else to deal with the explosion. Meredith should have felt rage, should have screamed, should have slammed the door in this woman's face and refused to engage with the person who had helped destroy her marriage. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Recognition. She saw herself 2 years ago, before the wedding, before the pregnancy, when Grant was just a charming man with an easy smile and a way of making her feel like the only woman in the world. She saw herself falling for the same lies, the same manipulations, the same carefully crafted persona. Brittany was not her enemy. Brittany was another victim, another woman deceived by a man who specialized in deception. He is lying to you too, Meredith said. The gentleness in her own voice surprised her, but she did not try to stop it. He has been lying to both of us, about everything, about who he is and what he wants and what he is capable of. I know. Brittany's eyes were wet, tears that seemed genuine. I think I have always known somewhere deep down, but I wanted to believe him. He made me feel so special, so chosen, like I was different from all the other women he had been with, like what we had was real. They all do, until they do not. The door behind Meredith opened. Dorothy stepped out, assessed the situation in 3 seconds, and crossed her arms. You are the mistress. Brittany flinched visibly. I did not know the full truth. I mean, I knew he was married, but I did not know it was like this. He made her sound so different. Cold, cruel, controlling. Crazy, controlling, cold, sexless. Dorothy's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. They all say the same things. Every cheating husband in history has used the same script. My husband said them too, 30 years ago. Different woman, same lies. Meredith turned to look at her mother. What? Your father cheated, sweetheart, for 6 years. Found out when you were 10 years old. We worked through it, or I thought we did. Dorothy's eyes stayed fixed on Brittany, but there was something distant in her gaze, something old and painful. He died before the second affair came out. I found letters in his desk after the funeral. An entire relationship I never knew about. Another woman who thought she was special. The ground shifted beneath Meredith's feet. Her father, her kind, gentle, devoted father. The man who had taught her to ride a bike, who had walked her down the aisle at her wedding, who had cried at her college graduation. A cheater, just like Grant. Why did you never tell me? Because you loved him, because he was a good father, even if he was a terrible husband, because some truths have no good timing, and I was always waiting for the right moment. It never came, Dorothy's voice softened, and because I hoped it would not matter, that you would never be in a position to need that particular lesson. Generations of betrayal, the same patterns repeating, Father and husband, separated by decades but connected by the same willingness to deceive the women who love them. Brittany stood slowly, straightened her expensive coat. Her composure had partially returned, though her eyes were still red. "I am not going to apologize," she said. "I did what I did. I knew he was married. I chose to believe his version of reality instead of asking harder questions. That is on me." She paused at the bottom of the steps. "But I am also not going to be his fool anymore, and I am not going to help him destroy you." She walked to her car without looking back, got in, drove away. Meredith watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Dorothy put an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Come inside. It is cold out here." They went in, sat at the kitchen table with cups of tea neither of them particularly wanted. "Dad cheated," Meredith said. The words felt foreign in her mouth, a fact that rewrote her entire childhood. "You stayed anyway." "I stayed because I thought that was what love meant. Forgiveness, second chances, making it work for the sake of the family." Dorothy shook her head slowly. "I was wrong. Some things cannot be forgiven. Some cracks cannot be repaired. Your father never understood why I kept a part of myself locked away from him after the first affair. He thought I was being cold. I was protecting myself. There is a difference." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you need to know that betrayal is a pattern. It runs in families. It repeats through generations like a curse no one chooses to break." Dorothy reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "But so does survival. So does the courage to start over. So does choosing yourself when everyone else has chosen to hurt you. That is the pattern I want you to learn from. The survival, not the betrayal." Meredith thought about everything she had learned in the past 2 weeks. The messages on Grant's phone, the secret apartment, the hidden money, the mistress pregnant with his child, the years of lies layered so thickly that she could not find the truth beneath them. Grant had not just betrayed her, he had replicated her father's sins, had worn the same mask of devotion while building a secret life behind it. But she was not her mother. She would not stay silent for 30 years, would not swallow the truth to protect anyone else's comfort, would not pretend everything was fine while her heart slowly calcified. She would fight, and she would win. For herself, for her daughter, for all the women who had been told that their pain did not matter as much as their husband's convenience. The baby kicked, strong and insistent and angry. "I know, sweetheart," Meredith murmured, pressing her palm against her belly. "Mama is angry too." The divorce papers arrived on Christmas Eve. There was a bitter poetry to the timing. 1 year ago, Meredith had been opening presents with her husband, laughing at the fuzzy slippers he had wrapped so carefully, planning their first Christmas as expectant parents. Now she sat in her mother's living room, watching the snow fall through the window, and accepted an envelope from a process server who seemed embarrassed to be working on Christmas Eve. "I am sorry, ma'am," he said. "Just doing my job." "I understand, thank you." She opened the envelope alone, read the documents alone, felt her world collapse a little further alone. Grant was suing her, not for divorce, for abandonment. According to his legal filing, Meredith had left the marital home without cause, had abandoned her husband during a difficult time, had stolen his property, damaged his reputation, and made false accusations designed to destroy his career and relationships. Raymond Whitmore arrived within the hour. The snow was falling harder now, but he made the drive from his office without complaint. This was what she was paying him for, after all. He spread the documents across Dorothy's kitchen table with clinical precision. "His version of events is creative. I will give him that," Raymond said. His voice dripped with something that might have been amusement in a different context. "According to this filing, you stepped outside for fresh air during an argument. The door accidentally locked behind you. He did not hear you knocking because he was wearing noise-canceling headphones while working on an important project for his employer. And the woman in our living room? His filing does not mention her at all. Of course it did not. In Grant's version of reality, Brittany did not exist. The affair did not exist. The deliberate cruelty did not exist. Only Meredith Boyd's supposed abandonment, her alleged instability, her imagined crimes. He is also claiming that the money transferred to his personal accounts was his separate property," Raymond continued, Inheritance from a relative, he says, not subject to division in the divorce. His relatives are all alive and as poor as mine. I am aware. The claim is fraudulent. We can prove it. Raymond flipped to another page. He is also seeking sole custody of the child on the grounds that your mental instability makes you an unfit mother. Mental instability. The phrase hit like a slap. He tried to freeze me to death, and I am the unstable one. According to him, you invented the entire incident for attention. Deliberately locked yourself out and exaggerated the timeline to make him look bad. Claims you have a history of histrionic behavior and manipulation. The lies were so bold, so shameless, so completely disconnected from reality that Meredith could not even muster outrage. Only a kind of numb amazement at Grant's audacity. "What do we do?" she asked. Raymond smiled. The expression was sharp and predatory, and Meredith found it oddly comforting. "We fight, and we destroy him." Over the next 2 weeks, Raymond built their counterattack like a general preparing for war. Every document Grant had tried to hide, every photograph from Callum's security cameras, every witness who could testify to Grant's character, his lies, his cruelty. And then there was Brittany. She arrived at the apartment on January 5th, looking diminished since their last encounter. The expensive coat was the same, but something in her bearing had changed. She seemed smaller, more fragile. "I need to talk to you about," she said when Meredith opened the door. "I have information you should hear." They sat across from each other at Dorothy's kitchen table. Brittany's hands trembled around her cup of tea. "Grant asked me to lie for him," she said without preamble. "He wants me to testify that you knew about our relationship for months, that you had confronted him about it multiple times, that the night in the snow was a performance to make yourself look like a victim and him look like a villain." "What did you say?" "I said I needed time to think." Brittany stared into her tea. "But I am not going to do it. I am done lying for him. I am done being his tool." "What changed?" Brittany was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "He hit me. 3 nights ago. We had an argument about the legal case. I said maybe he should just tell the truth, accept responsibility for what he did, try to negotiate a settlement instead of fighting a war he could not win." She pushed up her sleeve, revealing purple fingerprints bruised into her forearm. "He grabbed me so hard I thought my arm would break. He called me names I will not repeat. He said if I did not do exactly what he told me, he would make sure I lost everything. The apartment, the cow, the future he had promised me." Meredith looked at the bruises. They were ugly, dark against Brittany's pale skin, evidence of the violence that had always lurked beneath Grant's charming surface. "Have you seen a doctor? Documented the injuries?" "Yes. I went to urgent care that night. They took photographs, filed a report." Brittany met Meredith's eyes. "And I told the police everything, about the affair, about his plans, about what he did to you and what he did to me. I gave a full statement yesterday." It was a strange moment. Two women who should have been enemies, finding common ground in the wreckage of a man's destruction. United not by friendship, but by shared recognition of who Grant really was. "Why did you come here to tell me this?" Meredith asked. Brittany considered the question. "Because you were kind to me. That first day, when I showed up demanding you drop the charges, you could have screamed at me, could have thrown things, could have called me every name I deserved. Instead, you told me he was lying to both of us." She paused and something like wonder crossed her face. "No one has ever been kind to me when I did not deserve it. I wanted to return the favor. To be honest with you, even though honesty is hard, even though it means admitting how stupid I was to believe him. You were not stupid. You were deceived. There is a difference, were you?" "There?" "Yes." Meredith spoke with certainty she had earned through her own painful education. "Believing someone who deliberately lies to you is not stupidity. It is trust. And trust is supposed to be safe. The fault lies with the person who abuses it, not the person who offers it." Brittany sat with that for a moment. Then she stood. "I will have my lawyer send the official statement to yours. Everything I know about Grant's plans, his finances, his secrets. I hope it helps you destroy him." "Thank you for being honest, for making the hard choice." Brittany paused at the door. "I am keeping the baby, raising it alone. I know you probably think that is crazy, but I will not punish an innocent child for its father's sins. Our children will be siblings, Meredith said quietly. Half-siblings. Whatever else happens, that connection exists. Yes, I have thought about that. Brittany managed a small, sad smile. Maybe someday, when they are older, they can know each other, have some kind of relationship. But for now we survive, separately, and we make sure Grant faces consequences for what he did. Brittany nodded, then she was gone. Dorothy emerged from the kitchen where she had been listening. That took courage, she said, coming here, admitting what she knew, choosing the hard truth over the easy lie. Yes, it did. She reminds me of someone I used to know. Dorothy's voice was soft, reflective. A young woman who made terrible choices because she believed a man who did not deserve her trust. Who? Me. She reminds me of me 30 years ago. Dorothy sat down across from her daughter. I stayed with your father after the first affair because I thought that was love. Forgiveness and second chances and making it work. I told myself I was being strong. I told myself I was doing the right thing for our family. But I was just scared of being alone, scared of what people would say, scared of admitting that the life I had built was a lie. She reached across the table and took Meredith's hand. You are not me. You are making different choices, braver choices. I am prouder of you than I have ever been of anyone, including myself. The words settled into Meredith's heart, warm and unexpected and desperately needed. I could not do this without you, Mom. Yes, you could. You would have found your way, but I am glad you do not have to. That night, Meredith slept through the night for the first time since December. Peacefully, dreamlessly. The worst was not over. But maybe, just maybe, she was ready to face whatever came next. The settlement conference was scheduled for January 20th. Meredith prepared for it like a soldier preparing for battle. Not with weapons, but with documents. Evidence. The accumulated proof of Grant's deception, gathered over weeks of investigation and delivered in neat manila folders to Raymond Whitmore's office. She arrived at the conference with her mother on one side and Charlotte Ashford on the other. The billionaire's grandmother had insisted on attending. Character witness, Charlotte explained in the car. 72 years of impeccable social standing, charitable works, and connections to every important family in the state. When I testify that I watched Grant Cole close the curtain on his freezing pregnant wife, people listen, juries listen, judges listen. This is a settlement conference, not a trial. Every legal proceeding is a performance, dear, and every performance requires an audience. Charlotte smoothed the lapels of her designer suit. Today, I am part of your audience, a very influential part. Grant was already seated when they entered the conference room. He looked smaller than Meredith remembered. Tired. Dark circles under his eyes suggested sleepless nights. His expensive suit hung loosely on his frame, as if he had lost weight. Good, she thought. Consequences have a way of shrinking people. His lawyer, a nervous man with thinning hair and a tendency to fidget with his pen, kept whispering in Grant's ear. Whatever he was saying seemed to make Grant more agitated, not less. Raymond opened the proceedings with surgical precision. We are here to discuss a fair resolution of the dissolution of the Cole marriage. My client is seeking full recovery of all marital property, including hidden assets. Additionally, she seeks sole legal and physical custody of the minor child and spousal support commensurate with the standard of living established during the marriage. Grant's lawyer cleared his throat. My client is prepared to offer a 60-40 split of acknowledged marital assets. Additionally, we propose shared custody with Mr. Cole receiving visitation rights every other weekend and alternating holidays. No, the word came from Meredith. Clear and firm. Everyone turned to look at her. No? Grant's lawyer repeated. No, that offer is unacceptable. Meredith opened the folder in front of her. I want everything. Every dollar he hid while telling me we could not afford vacations. Every asset he concealed while I wore my sister's old maternity clothes. The apartment, yet the brokerage account, the cryptocurrency, the car, everything. Grant's face went pale. That is insane. You cannot just... I can. Meredith cut him off. Because I have documentation of every transfer, every secret account, every lay. She spread papers across the table. Bank statements, property records, the forensic accountant's report, everything Raymond's investigator had uncovered. Then she pushed a single photograph across the polished surface. A still image from Callum's security footage. Grant's face illuminated by Christmas lights, looking directly at the window, smiling as he closed the curtain. This image alone is worth approximately $800,000 in a civil lawsuit, Raymond said. His voice was ice. Reckless endangerment of a pregnant woman. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Attempted manslaughter, arguably, given the weather conditions and her medical state. That photograph could be doctored, taken out of context, misinterpreted. The original footage is time-stamped and authenticated, Mr. Cole. It shows you looking directly at the window for 18 seconds before closing the curtain. The audio track captures your wife calling your name. Repeatedly. You heard her. You saw her. You chose to leave her there. Grant opened his mouth, closed it. His lawyer's whispers became more urgent. We also have testimony from Brittany Vance, Raymond continued. Ms. Vance has provided a detailed statement corroborating the affair, the financial planning, the intention to abandon your wife and child. She has also filed assault charges related to an incident on January 2nd, during which you allegedly grabbed her arm hard enough to leave visible bruising. Grant's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Furthermore, Raymond pressed on, we have discovered evidence of tax fraud. Mr. Cole has been claiming his wife and unborn child as dependents on tax returns in 2 different states. Total unreported income over the past 3 years amounts to approximately $160,000. That is, there must be some mistake. The IRS will be very interested to discuss that mistake with you, Mr. Cole, as will your employer, given that several of your trips to visit Ms. Vance were billed as client meetings. That constitutes fraud against your company as well. The room fell silent. Grant stared at the documents spread across the table, at the photograph of his own face, at the ruins of every scheme he had constructed. His lawyer requested a recess. They huddled in the corner of the room, voices hushed but urgent. Meredith could see the body language shifting, the lawyer gesturing, Grant shaking his head, the lawyer gesturing more emphatically. 15 minutes later, they returned to the table. My client agrees to the terms, Grant's lawyer said. His voice was flat, defeated. Full asset recovery for Mrs. Cole, sole legal and physical custody of the minor child. Mr. Cole will sign a statement acknowledging his actions on December 19th. Meredith stood, extended her hand across the table toward Grant. He stared at her outstretched hand, at her face, at the woman he had tried to destroy who was now standing triumphant in his wreckage. Thank you, she said. Her voice was steady, calm, almost gentle. Thank you for showing me exactly who you really are. I spent 4 years not knowing. Now I know. And that clarity, painful as it was, is a gift I will carry forward. Grant did not shake her hand, just sat there, frozen, as the consequences of his choices piled up around him like snow. Meredith withdrew her hand, turned, walked out of the room without looking back. In the hallway, Dorothy wrapped her in a fierce embrace. You did it, sweetheart. You won. The legal part, Meredith said, her voice muffled against her mother's shoulder. But there is more to surviving than winning lawsuits. One battle at a time. Dorothy pulled back, her eyes bright with proud tears. Today you won this battle. Tomorrow you will win the next one. And the day after that. Until all the battles are behind you and only the future is left. Charlotte Ashford appeared beside them, looking extremely satisfied. That was one of the most impressive settlement conferences I have attended in my considerable experience, she declared. The moment you pushed that photograph across the table, every person in that room knew exactly how this would end. You did not just win, dear. You dominated. Raymond emerged from the conference room, his professional demeanor cracked into something that resembled genuine emotion. In 30 years of practice, I have rarely seen a case come together so completely, he said. The forensic work, the witness testimony, the documentation, it was airtight. His lawyers had no room to maneuver. What happens now? Now we finalize the paperwork. The divorce should be official within 30 days. The asset transfers will take longer, but the orders are in place. He cannot hide anything else. Raymond smiled. You will receive a full accounting within 6 weeks. And Mrs. Cole, you are going to be very comfortable. Comfortable. Such a strange word for the aftermath of destruction. They walked out of the building together. The January air was crisp but not cruel. The sun was shining for the first time in days. The world looked different somehow. Brighter. Cleaner. Grant had tried to freeze her to death, had tried to erase her from his life so he could start fresh with someone younger, more pliable, more convenient. Instead, he had lost everything. His money, his reputation, his future with either woman who had trusted him. And Meredith had found something she did not know she was missing. Herself. The person she was before Grant. The woman she was becoming after him. Someone stronger, wiser, unafraid. The baby kicked. Hard. Celebratory maybe, or just restless. Let us go home, Meredith said. I need to rest before the next chapter begins. Dorothy took her arm. Charlotte fell into step beside them. Raymond trailed behind, already making phone calls to finalize the paperwork. A team, a family, people who showed up when it mattered. Meredith had lost a husband, but she had gained so much more than she had lost. 3 in the morning, January 24th. The divorce would be final in 6 days. Meredith could not sleep. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as cars passed on the street below. The baby was restless too, shifting and kicking, refusing to settle, 2 hearts beating in the darkness, both waiting for something unnamed. The legal victory should have felt like an ending, a door closing on the nightmare. Instead, it felt like standing at the edge of a vast, unknown space with no idea how to cross it. What now? The question echoed in the silence. What came after the fight was won? After the enemy was defeated? After the adrenaline faded and all that remained was the quiet aftermath? Meredith had spent 2 months in survival mode, gathering evidence, building her case, preparing for battle. Every moment had purpose. Every action moved toward a goal. Now the goal was achieved, and she felt emptier than she had since December 19th. The voice in her head started whispering. Grant's voice. The one she had heard every day for 4 years, drilling into her mind until his words became her thoughts. You are so emotional lately. You have really let yourself go. My mother always said you were not good enough for me. No one else would put up with you. Who is going to want a single mother with a newborn? She knew the voice was lying, knew it was the residue of years of subtle manipulation, gaslighting so gradual she had not even noticed it happening. But knowing something was a lie did not make it stop hurting, did not make it stop whispering in the dark when she was alone and vulnerable and scared. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from an unknown number. You ruined my life. I hope you are happy. Then another. Everyone knows you are lying about Grant. Then another. Gold digger, baby trap, divorce thief. Then another. You will die alone and no one will care. The messages kept coming. A cascade of hate from Grant's family, his friends, strangers who had seen his social media posts painting her as the villain. People who did not know her, had never met her, but felt entitled to pass judgment on her choices and her character. Meredith turned off her phone, put it in the freezer, next to the ice cream she had bought, but never opened. The cold felt appropriate. Everything felt cold now. She walked to the window, looked out at nothing. Snow was falling again, light flurries that made the streetlights look fuzzy and uncertain. January's last gasp before giving way to February. This time last year, she had been so happy, decorating a Christmas tree with a husband she thought loved her, planning nursery themes and arguing about baby names, believing in forever. Now forever was a stack of legal documents and a settlement agreement and a future she had to build alone. The grief hit without warning, not the sharp, sudden grief of discovering betrayal. This was something older, deeper, a profound mourning for the life she thought she was going to have, for the family she thought she was building, for the person she thought her husband was. She slid down the wall and sat on the cold floor. Her pregnant belly made the position uncomfortable, but she did not care, did not have the energy to move somewhere more sensible. She cried, not dramatically, not beautifully, ugly sob that shook her whole body. Snot and tears and the raw animal sound of someone breaking down completely. For the marriage she had already mourned a dozen times. For the father her daughter would never have. For the woman she used to be, before she learned what cruelty looked like wearing a loving face. She cried until there was nothing left, until her throat was raw and her eyes were swollen shut and her body felt wrung out like a dish rag. Then she sat in the silence, empty, hollow, waiting for something she could not name. A soft knock at the door startled her. 4 in the morning. Who would be here at 4 in the morning? She pulled herself up, using the wall for support. Checked the peephole. Callum Ashford stood in the hallway. He wore sweatpants and a winter coat hastily thrown over what looked like a t-shirt. His hair was disheveled, his face lined with concern. She opened the door. "Your mother called me," he said before she could ask. "She said you were not answering your phone." She was worried. "I put my phone in the freezer." He nodded, did not laugh, did not question. Just accepted it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. They sat on her second-hand couch. Two people shaped by different tragedies. Both awake at 4 in the morning because sleep meant dreaming, and dreaming meant remembering. "I used to do the same thing," Callum said after a long silence. "Not the freezer, specifically. But I would hide from technology after Evelyn died. Turn off every device. Sit in the dark. Try to make the world stop spinning for just a few minutes." Did it work? Not really. The world kept spinning whether I participated or not. But sometimes you need the illusion of control, even if it is just controlling how much noise reaches you. Meredith pulled her knees up as far as her belly would allow. The position was awkward, but the compression felt grounding. "I should be happy," she said. "We won. Grant is going to face consequences. The divorce will be final in less than a week. I should be celebrating." Says who? Says everyone. Every movie and book and friend with advice. The victim is supposed to triumph and then feel triumphant. That is how the story goes. Real life does not follow scripts. Callum's voice was gentle. You were married to that man for 4 years. You loved him. You built a life with him. You created a child with him. The fact that he turned out to be a monster does not erase the love you felt. It just makes the love hurt more. How do you know? Because I loved Evelyn. Even after she died, even after I found out things about her first marriage that she had hidden from me, I still loved her. Still love her. He paused. Betrayal does not cancel love. It just makes love more complicated. What kind of things did you find out? Callum was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. She never told me how dangerous her ex-husband was. I knew she had been in an abusive relationship before me, but she downplayed it. Said it was in the past, that she had healed, that she did not want to dwell on it. I believed her because I wanted to believe her, because believing her was easier than pushing for uncomfortable truths. And then he found her, after years of running. One afternoon, while I was on the other side of the world, closing a business deal I thought was more important than being home. His hands clenched on his knees, old grief, old guilt, wounds that had scarred over but never fully healed. I am telling you this because I need you to understand something. He turned to face her, his gray eyes intense in the dim light. Asking for help is not weakness. Accepting help is not failure. Sitting on the floor crying at 4 in the morning is not a sign that you are broken beyond repair. It is a sign that you are human, that you feel things, that what happened to you was traumatic and wrong and worthy of grief. I feel so stupid. The words came out small, fragile. I believed everything he said, every lie, every manipulation. I thought I was smart. I thought I could tell the difference between real and fake. You could tell. You just trusted the wrong person with your truth. Callum reached over, took her hand, held it gently without pressure or expectation. Meredith, Grant did not trick you because you were stupid. He tricked you because he was very good at lying, probably had practiced his whole life. Some people are masters at deception. It is their gift, if you can call it that, their special skill. Falling for a skilled liar does not make you a fool. It makes you human. I do not know how to trust anyone again. You do not have to know right now. You just have to keep breathing. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. The trust will come back eventually, in its own time, not all at once, not easily, but it will come. How do you know? Because you are still here, still fighting, still caring enough to grieve what you lost. He squeezed her hand gently. People who give up do not cry at 4 in the morning. They go numb, they stop feeling. You are feeling everything right now, and that is painful, but it is also proof that you are going to be okay. Meredith let the tears come again, quieter this time, gentler. Not the desperate sobs from before, but a softer release. A letting go. Callum did not try to fix it, did not offer platitudes or advice or promises. Just sat beside her, holding her hand, while she shattered and slowly, piece by piece, began putting herself back together. When the first light of dawn crept through the windows, she finally felt empty enough to sleep. Callum helped her to the couch, covered her with a blanket, pressed a kiss to her forehead that was gentle and paternal, and somehow exactly what she needed. Sleep, he said. Tomorrow is a new day. She slept, dreamlessly, peacefully. And when she woke, hours later, there was a note on the counter in Callum's neat handwriting. You are stronger than you know. Call when you're ready. I will be here. She folded the note carefully and put it in her pocket. A reminder, a promise. Maybe she would be okay after all. February 1st, the divorce was final. The baby was due in 5 days. Meredith sat in her mother's kitchen, surrounded by documents and calculations, putting together the final pieces of her financial picture. The settlement had been more generous than she expected. Between the recovered assets, the hidden accounts, and the spousal support, she would never have to worry about money again. Not extravagantly wealthy, but comfortable, secure, able to focus on her daughter without the crushing stress of financial precarity. But money was just one piece of the puzzle. The harder work was rebuilding her sense of self. She had spent the past week going through old photographs, wedding pictures she would never display again, vacation snapshots from trips she now understood differently, baby shower memories tainted by the knowledge that her best friend had known, or at least suspected, the truth about her marriage. One by one she sorted them. Some went in the trash. Others went in a box marked, "For Eleanor someday," because her daughter deserved to know her own history, even the painful parts. The hardest were the pictures of Grant looking happy, looking loving, looking like the devoted husband she had believed him to be. Those she burned in the fireplace. Watching the flames consume his false face felt appropriate, a ritual, a cleansing. Raymond Whitmore called with the final serious accounting. The numbers were even better than projected. Grant's hidden investments had grown more than anticipated, and all of it now belonged to Meredith. I also wanted to let you know, Raymond said, that the IRS has opened an investigation into Mr. Cole's tax filings, and his employer has terminated his position, effective immediately. Something about fraudulent expense reports. Consequences. Real, tangible consequences for real, tangible crimes. Is he going to jail? That depends on the federal investigation. Tax fraud is serious, but it is hard to predict how aggressive they will be. At minimum, he is looking at significant fines and penalties. At maximum, Raymond paused. Let us just say his legal troubles are far from over. Meredith thanked him and ended the call. The satisfaction she expected did not quite materialize. Grant's downfall brought her no joy, only a weary sense of completion. Her phone buzzed with a text. Jocelyn, can we talk? I know you needed space. I have respected that. But the baby is coming soon, and I want to be there for you if you will let me. Meredith stared at the message for a long time. 2 months of silence between them. 2 months of processing, not just Grant's betrayal, but Jocelyn's complicity. She thought about 12 years of friendship, about Jocelyn holding her hair back during food poisoning, about late-night phone calls and emergency chocolate deliveries, and the comfortable intimacy of knowing someone so well you could finish their sentences. She thought about September, about Jocelyn seeing Grant with another woman and saying nothing, about months of smiles and baby showers and pretended ignorance. Some betrayals were unforgivable, but this one. Come over tonight, Meredith typed back. We need to talk. Jocelyn arrived at 7, looking nervous and hopeful in equal measure. She carried a basket of supplies, prenatal vitamins, comfortable socks, the expensive chocolate Meredith loved, but could never justify buying for herself. They sat in the living room. The space between them felt vast, even though they were only feet apart. "I have been thinking a lot," Meredith said, "about what you did not do. I know, I am so—" "Let me finish." Meredith held up her hand. "I have been thinking about what I would have done in your position. If I had seen your husband with another woman, if I had suspected but was not certain, if I had been faced with the choice between comfortable silence and devastating truth. And, and I do not know, I would like to think I would have told you immediately that I would have chosen truth no matter how painful. But I do not know for sure. I have never been in that position." Jocelyn's eyes filled with tears. "I should have been braver. I should have trusted you to handle the truth." "Yes, you should have. And you did not. And that hurt me. It still hurts me." Meredith paused, choosing her next words carefully. "But I am tired of being hurt. I am tired of carrying anger. I am about to have a baby, and I do not want to bring her into a world where her mother is consumed by bitterness and resentment." "What are you saying?" "I am saying I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay. It was not okay, and you know that. But because holding on to this anger is hurting me more than it is hurting you. And I refuse to let Grant's betrayal destroy any more of my relationships." Jocelyn started crying in earnest. "I do not deserve your forgiveness." "Probably not, but I am giving it anyway, because I need my best friend." Meredith's voice cracked slightly. "I am about to give birth, Jocelyn. I am about to become a mother, and I need people around me who love me, even people who have failed me, even people who made terrible mistakes. I love you. I have always loved you. I was just too scared to risk losing you by telling you the truth. I know, and we are going to have to work through that. Rebuild trust. It will not happen overnight." Meredith managed a small smile. "But I think we can do it if you are willing to put in the work. I will do anything, whatever it takes." They hugged then, awkwardly at first, because of Meredith's belly, but then fiercely. 12 years of friendship reasserting itself, battered and bruised but not destroyed. When they pulled apart, Jocelyn wiped her eyes. "I brought chocolate," she said. "The good kind, the kind with the salted caramel." "I saw," Meredith laughed. The sound surprised her. She had not laughed in weeks. "Let us eat it all and pretend we are still in college." They did, and for a few hours, surrounded by chocolate wrappers and easy conversation, Meredith felt almost like herself again. Almost, not completely, but almost was a start. Labor started at 3 in the morning on February 6th, 2 days early, because of course it did. Meredith woke to a contraction that stole her breath, sharp and undeniable. This was not a practice run. This was not Braxton Hicks. This was the real thing. She called her mother first, then Jocelyn, then without thinking, Callum. "I am on my way," he said. No questions asked, no hesitation. The hospital was the same one from December. The same hallways she had been wheeled through, hypothermic and terrified. Different circumstances now. She walked in through the front entrance under her own power, not a victim, a mother. The labor room was private and clean. Dorothy took up position on one side of the bed, Jocelyn on the other. Callum waited in the hallway, pacing like an expectant father, even though he was neither. "You do not have to stay," Meredith told him during a break between contractions. "This could take hours, days even." "I know." His gray eyes were steady, certain. "I want to stay." 12 hours of labor, breathing exercises and ice shifts and encouragement from everyone around her. The pain was immense, beyond anything she had imagined, but it was purposeful pain. Every wave brought her closer to meeting her daughter. At 3:17 in the afternoon, Eleanor Dorothy Cole entered the world screaming. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, a full head of dark hair, eyes squeezed shut against the bright lights, lungs working perfectly, announcing her presence to anyone within earshot. "Hello, sweetheart." Meredith held her daughter against her chest for the first time, skin to skin, heart to heart, tears streaming down her face. You made it. We made it. The baby's cries softened as she felt her mother's warmth. She blinked up at Meredith with unfocused newborn eyes. So small, so perfect, so completely worth every moment of pain and fear and heartbreak. "I'm going to tell you a story someday," Meredith whispered, "about the night you almost did not make it, about the stranger who saved us both, about how the worst night of my life led to the best day of yours." Eleanor made a small sound, not a cry, something softer, content, safe. The doctors and nurses did their work. Measurements and tests and assessments, all normal, all healthy, a perfect baby born to an imperfect situation. Dorothy cried for an hour straight. Happy tears, she insisted. Grandmother tears. Jocelyn took approximately 500 photographs and threatened to send all of them to everyone she had ever met. And Callum, when he was finally allowed into the room, stood in the doorway looking uncertain for the first time since Meredith had known him. "Come in," she said. "Come meet her." He crossed to the bed slowly, looked down at the sleeping infant cradled in her mother's arms. "Eleanor," Meredith said, "after my grandmother, Dorothy's mother, she raised 6 children during the Depression, never complained once, for sure. She is beautiful. She is alive because of you." Callum's jaw tightened, that familiar flicker in his gray eyes, the grief he carried always just beneath the surface. "I was just in the right place at the right time. You were watching. You called for help before I even asked. You stayed through the hospital, through the investigation, through the divorce. You stayed." Meredith reached for his hand. "Thank you is not enough, but it is all I have." He held her hand for a long moment, warm and steady. "You have more than that. You have yourself. You have her. You have a future that Grant tried to steal from you." He smiled, gentle, real. "That is not nothing, Meredith. That is everything." She looked down at her daughter, this tiny person who had survived against all odds, who had been carried through hypothermia and heartbreak and emerged whole. "I thought my life was over that night in the snow," Meredith said quietly. "I thought everything I believed in was a lie." "Some of it was, but not all of it." Callum's voice was soft. "Your love for this baby was always real. Your strength was always real. Your ability to survive and rebuild was always real. Grant lied about himself. He did not lie about who you are." The evening settled in. Visitors said their goodbyes and promised to return tomorrow. The hospital room grew quiet. Meredith was alone with Eleanor, just the two of them, mother and daughter. She fed the baby for the first time, marveled at how naturally it came, how Eleanor seemed to know exactly what to do even though she had only been alive for hours. "We are going to be okay," Meredith whispered against her daughter's soft head. "I promise, whatever comes next, we are going to be okay." Eleanor slept against her chest, breathing softly, trusting completely. It was the most beautiful thing Meredith had ever experienced. And to think she had almost lost it, almost frozen to death on her own front porch while her husband watched through the window. But she had not. She had survived. She had fought. She had won. And now she was here, holding her daughter, beginning again. The door was closed, but Meredith had finally stopped being afraid of what lay on the other side. 1 year later, December 19th. Meredith stood on the front porch of her farmhouse watching the snow fall. She had bought the place with the settlement money. A white clapboard house with blue shutters and a wraparound porch, set on 2 acres of land just outside Pittsburgh. Not grand, but perfect. Hers. The snow fell gently, light flurries that dusted the lawn and collected on the mailbox at the end of the long driveway. Nothing like that night. The snow was soft, beautiful, chosen. Inside, the house was warm and full of people. Dorothy hung ornaments on the Christmas tree, debating the optimal placement of each one with the intensity of an art curator. Every branch required consideration. Every light string demanded adjustment. Jocelyn wrapped presents at the kitchen table, tape stuck to her fingers and ribbon tangled around her wrists. She had never been good at wrapping, but she insisted on trying every year, creating packages that looked like they had survived a small explosion. Charlotte Ashford, who had demanded to be called Lottie after their first month of acquaintance, directed the placement of the tree topper with the authority of a general commanding troops. She had opinions about angel versus star, and she was not afraid to share them at length. And Callum. standing on a ladder reaching for the highest branch, following his grandmother's instructions with patient amusement. He had become a permanent fixture in Meredith's life over the past year. Not a boyfriend, not exactly. Something more complicated, something still forming. They were not a couple, not officially. Something was building between them, slow and careful, built on a foundation of shared trauma and mutual respect. Trust earned through consistency, affection grown through presence. But Meredith was not ready for declarations or definitions, might not be ready for years. Callum understood. He did not push, did not pressure, just showed up. Week after week, month after month, like the neighbor who calls emergency services first and then stays for everything that comes after. Eleanor toddled across the living room floor, chasing a ball that kept rolling away from her determined grasp. 11 months old, walking early, talking early, determined about everything, like her mother. "Mama!" She reached up when she noticed Meredith watching, small hands grabbing at the air. Meredith scooped her daughter into her arms, pressed a kiss to her curly head, breathed in the scent of baby shampoo and innocence, in pure, uncomplicated love. "Hello, sweetheart. Are you supervising the decorating?" Eleanor babbled something that might have been an answer, might have been nonsense, probably both. The doorbell rang. Meredith tensed, an old reflex, a leftover from months of harassment and unexpected legal documents and messages from unknown numbers. "I will get it," Callum's voice, calm, steady. He returned with a small package. His expression was carefully neutral. "From Grant's lawyers," he said. "Want me to open it?" Meredith shook her head, set Eleanor down, took the package. Inside was a single photograph. Grant and Brittany, wedding announcement, taken on a beach somewhere tropical. Both of them smiling in white linen in perfect lighting. And a note. "I want you to know I've moved on. I hope you can do the same." Meredith laughed, actually laughed. The sound surprised everyone in the room, including herself. "What is it?" Jocelyn asked, abandoning her ribbon-tangled present. "He wants me to know he moved on." Meredith handed the photograph to her mother. "Like I have been sitting by the phone, waiting for him to come back." Dorothy studied the image. The man who had tried to kill her daughter, standing beside the woman who had helped him deceive her. Both of them pretending everything was fine. She tore the photograph neatly in half, then quarters, then eighths, then sixteenths. "Good riddance to bad rubbish," she said, and fed the pieces into the fireplace. They caught flame immediately, curled and blackened, and turned to ash. Everyone watched in silence, the old life burning away, the new life continuing. "Turkey in 30 minutes, Dorothy announced, shaking off the moment. "Someone help me with the gravy." The room burst back into motion. Callum in the gravy, Jocelyn in the table settings, Charlotte in the wine selection. Meredith and Eleanor watching it all unfold with contentment that still felt new, still felt earned. Dinner was chaotic and loud and perfect. Turkey that Dorothy had somehow cooked to golden perfection. Mashed potatoes and green beans and stuffing and all the traditional dishes Meredith remembered from childhood. Wine for the adults, mashed banana for Eleanor, who got more on her face than in her mouth. Conversation flowed easily. Stories about work and friends and plans for the new year. Charlotte's commentary on society gossip. Jocelyn's dating disasters, recounted with self-deprecating humor. Dorothy's plans for the garden come spring. Normal, ordinary. The kind of evening Meredith had once dreamed of having with Grant before she understood who he really was. Now she had it without him. Better without him. After dinner, after dishes, after goodbyes and guest room assignments, Meredith slipped out to the front porch. The snow had stopped. The sky had cleared. Stars scattered across the darkness like spilled diamonds. Callum found her there, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the night. "Cold out here," he observed, sitting beside her on the porch swing. "I know," she smiled. "I am choosing it this time." They sat in comfortable silence. The swing creaked gently. The farmhouse glowed warm behind them. "A year ago tonight," Meredith said softly, "I was standing in the snow, knocking on my own door, watching my husband smile and close the curtain. I remember. I thought my life was over. I thought everything I believed in was a lie. I thought I would never trust anyone again, never love again, never feel safe again. And now I know it was just the beginning. She turned to look at him, this man who had witnessed her worst moment and chosen to stay. The worst thing that ever happened to me led to everything good I have now, my daughter, this house. My mother finally telling me the truth about my father. Jocelyn earning back my trust. Charlotte's weekly opinions about my wine choices. And me. And you. She reached for his hand. I am not ready for anything official. You know that. I might not be ready for a long time. I know. But I am going to be. Someday. When my heart finishes healing. When I trust myself to trust again. She squeezed his fingers. And when that day comes, I want it to be you. If you are still willing to wait. Callum lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Old-fashioned, gentlemanlike, perfectly him. I will be here, however long it takes. However you need me to show up. I will be here. The snow began falling again, light flurries that caught the porch light and sparkled as they fell. Inside, Eleanor slept in her yellow nursery, the same shade of yellow Grant had painted, because Meredith refused to let him ruin anything else. The room was filled with books and stuffed animals and photographs of the family she had built from the ashes of the one that had burned. The front door was unlocked. The front door would always be unlocked because Meredith had learned that prisons are not always built with walls. Sometimes they are built with silences, with secrets, with fear, with the inability to ask for help, with the shame of being deceived. And the only way out is to stop being afraid of the cold, to walk through it, to survive it, to come out the other side stronger than before. She had stopped being afraid. She had survived the December snow, the betrayal of her husband, the silence of her friend, the cruelty of strangers, the darkest nights alone with her thoughts. And now she was here, whole, healing, home. The woman who had almost frozen to death on her own doorstep was gone. In her place was someone new, someone forged by fire and ice and the relentless determination to survive. Someone who would teach her daughter that asking for help is not weakness, that trusting the wrong person does not make you stupid, that you can rebuild a life from ruins if you have the courage to keep going. Someone who had learned that some endings are really beginnings, some deaths are really births, and some December nights, the coldest ones, are just the darkness before dawn. Meredith Cole had walked through the darkness, and she had found the light on the other side. Thank you for staying with Meredith until the very end. Her journey from that frozen doorstep to finding herself again reminds us that sometimes our darkest moments lead to our brightest beginnings. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what moment affected you the most. And if you have not already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter.